Right now is probably a great time for us to discuss coalitions in crypto, because just today, I saw something that reminded me that we've reached this really weird point in history where crypto probably has some of the most powerful people in the world aligned on our side. Believe it or not, I think we're in that kind of golden age where the coalition behind crypto involves some of the most powerful people in the world. If all you really want is for those powerful people to powerfully bring us back to all-time highs, or if you're finding value in these videos, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies DRep address and the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. All right, let's go. Let's see who's in here. Let's see who's here. Hilldog's here. Let's go, Hilldog. He says, feels good to be number one. Sometimes, yep, you were first. You were number one. Eric Williams is here. Let's go, Eric. Jacob Nider is here. Love your content. Thank you so much for saying that, Jacob. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Dr. Doak says, let's go. I'm going to have to turn off the Dire Straits tune in 29 minutes. Fair enough. Guinness Speaks, what's up? Thank you for joining. Today's splash page looks like the Moon Boys having a hard time blending in with the crowd. That is indeed part of the theme of today. We definitely have being in crypto and forming the kind of coalition with the kind of people we're going to talk about tonight feels a little bit like we're at the weirdest, driest, most humorless bankers picnic ever, and we're all dressed up as astronauts, right? That's how it feels. We're going to talk about it though. Ada Eclipse says, we have a booth at Davos this year. Dude, does Cardano actually have a booth at Davos? At this point, it wouldn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me at all, but I can't tell if you're joking or not. Either one. But yeah, so this is probably what the Cardano booth at Davos would look like, if that's what you're referring to. That would definitely be what it would look like. Afro in the Wind, let's go. Yeah, you're here on time. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Cabaret Voltaire says, yo, Army of Spies, nice article on the Constitution. I brought up constitutional debt a while back on a show. I've been trying to prepare something, but I found a better source to explain it. Okay, great. Yeah, I'd love to see it. Here's a link to the IOG MVG proposal. There are supporting links at the bottom of the page, and bottom three are the governance debt. I think the comments right now won't allow you to post links. This was something that happened because we go through these waves because it's a crypto channel. We go through these waves where like 1 million accounts will just bombard the comments with links to a scam. So I think the current anti-spam stuff doesn't allow links. So you might have to send it to me on X or something, but I'd love to see it. Hilldog says, we are living through some crazy fucking times. We are indeed. Daylight savings time is bonkers. Yep. I agree with that part. I would love to get rid of the time change. I think it makes we've talked about it before on this channel, but it makes all the sense in the world to get rid of it. Who does that? Used to be back in the day, I think it was Arizona doesn't do it. Like the southern half of Indiana or something didn't do it. Maybe it's different now, but it's fine. You cannot have it. You cannot do the time change and everything turns out just fine. Long term, Ada will win this game. I hope so. I sure hope so. Maybe, but there's a long night ahead. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, Afro in the Wind got it at 18 seconds. Okay, this is great. I think 18 seconds is kind of working out, and a lot of people are missing nothing, so thanks for reporting that in. Brown Beardo is here. Yo, thanks for joining. James Syracuse is here saying, Ada, yeah, definitely living in some weird times. Yeah, we are. I want those powerful nocturnal emissions. Me too. I want those. I want those. Jose Cano says hello. Hilldog says, this time around, I'll be round tripping in my Moon Lambo. No more rookie fucking mistakes. God, I hope it works out for all of us. Blue Mammal, hey, thanks for joining. Brown Beardo says, I could absolutely see the CF putting a booth at Davos. Don't know if it's true or a joke. I know. It wouldn't surprise me at all. If somebody told me that there was one, I'd be like, okay, I think it was just a reference to the thumbnail. But Mission Zambia, good morning. Thank you for joining as always. James says, I'm buying a Lambo and then going to jail for not paying my crypto gains. That's probably a lot of people who buy in crypto who buy moon Lambos. There's probably a lot of them. Mark Going, let's go. Let's go. Thanks for joining. All the buzz at Davos today. We must move more rapidly with crypto tokenization on a single common blockchain. Larry Fink, we're going to talk about that character in just a second. Jordan for America, you just got here and I'm out. Laugh out loud. Catch this in the AM. Hey, thanks for dropping in anyways. I appreciate you dropping in. Let's round trip it 3 times. Brown Beardo says AOS, we get a whole month before we can finally start redeeming our night. Yeah, one of my smaller bags I think has actually come in, but yeah, my big bag is not until the very end. I've got more than a month till my big bag is redeemable. I haven't redeemed any of the small ones yet. I'll probably do it soon just to go through the process, but James Syracuse says, yes, I heard him say a single blockchain too. That's you're talking about Larry Fink, right? That sounds interesting. Well, let's jump into this a little bit. Let's talk about what's going on here a little bit. So, yes, this is our faithful astronauts here. You notice I've got them on grass. I'm putting them on grass because we are out of 2025, and I'm hoping we're looking forward to, beautiful, lush future. But at least we should have grass, at this point. At least there should be grass underfoot. So it's not like a lush tropical solar punk kind of setting. But it's also not, it's also not the barren desert. It's like somewhere between things. We're getting a little more precipitation, a little more green. Hopefully things are getting better. But this is indeed crypto finding itself in this weird situation where all of a sudden the bankers want us with them, right? So we show up to the bankers picnic here. We're looking around and we realize, oh yeah, this is what bankers are like. These guys are not the same as us. we are basically astronauts in a sea of ill-fitting suited men. that is what we are. Let's see. Cabaret Voltaire going to tag you. Yeah, just go ahead and tag me and I'll follow you or something so that you can send me straight DMs. Jacob Nider says it's a trap. Yeah, this is my feeling too. This is exactly my phobia as well. So let's look at what was going on today at Davos. So this was an image that, wouldn't surprise most people outside of crypto. But if you look at this from a crypto perspective, this was the moment when the head wild boy came up on stage to address, let's face it, kind of a hostile room. And who did they have bring him up on stage? But Larry Fink. Larry Fink brings Trump up on stage. And he reveals that Trump is the only president that's come to Davos in, what did he say? Like, many, many years, like 80 years or what. He had some number. I'm gonna mess it up, but he revealed that Trump has come, and this was like the second time Trump has come to Davos, and it's because Larry Fink invited him. So this would surprise no one. Larry Fink, Mr. BlackRock, king of TradFi. Of course, he's the one inviting Trump to WEF and Davos. But the reason why this is interesting from a crypto perspective is that it blew my mind when I realized these two are both on team crypto, at least team Bitcoin. I think of Bitcoin as just sort of like the gateway drug to crypto and a part of crypto, even if Larry Fink doesn't know that yet. He's on his way to loving all of crypto right now. He's just talking about Bitcoin maybe, but he's on his way. These two are both on team crypto. Trump made that a big campaign promise. He got, basically all the crypto votes. Larry Fink, after, going through a typical banker period of not being in love at all with crypto, he jumped on board the Bitcoin train in a big way. He is not like Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon is now sort of begrudgingly dragged into crypto and saying nice things about Bitcoin. But JP Morgan, of course, has been doing crypto stuff for years and years and years, even while Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan, was talking shit about crypto the whole time. Larry Fink, it didn't quite work that way. All of a sudden, he just sort of jumped over the fence. He was like, I'm a Bitcoin guy now. I was watching this today, and most people were watching this because it was super sort of interesting and awkward because Trump has been talking so much shit about Greenland, and our NATO allies are rightfully alarmed. They're rightfully alarmed. We won't talk a lot about Greenland today. I think it's kind of hilarious. Trump to me is like, he's like the kind of neighbor I wouldn't want to have, because he's the sort of neighbor, if he wanted to build a shed. I've given this example, this analogy before, but he's sort of like this neighbor, and you talk to him, and you're like, okay, you can sort of talk to him in passing when you both go out to your cars or whatever, or you're both in your front yard, everything's fine. And then one day he's like, hey, I want to build this shed, so I need you to sell me like 10 feet of your property. And you're like, nope, nope, nope. And then the next day Trump comes back and he's just sort of like, I'm going to burn down your fence. What would it be like how would you feel if I burned down your fence? And you're like, whoa, you just offered to buy 10 feet of my property. Who said anything about burning down my fence? And he's like, it's possible I could burn down your fence. I do have gasoline and matches, right? And you'd probably call the cops. As that neighbor, you'd call the cops and be like, I've got this psycho living next to me who wants to burn down my fence. And if that was the first time you dealt with him, you wouldn't realize that this is just how he negotiates. He's not going to burn down your fence, but he is going to try to make you think he might burn down your fence just so he can negotiate more quickly with you. He just wants to get you at the negotiating table. He's not really going to burn down your fence because he doesn't want to go to jail. But this is what he does. He's going to say scary shit to try to get you to focus all of your mental energy on the negotiation with him. You're at least, even if you're pissed at him, you're at least going to be at the negotiating table. You're going to be like talking to the cops saying, this guy threatened to burn down my fence, and he's gonna be like, no, I just want to talk about buying the 10 feet, and you're like, God, if I sell him the 10 feet, will he stop talking about burning down my fence and shit? So I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying that that's the kind of person I want to negotiate with, but it does get people to focus on the fact that he wants to negotiate. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I won't go too deep on the Greenland thing. So most people, I think, were watching it because the Greenland thing is so weird. It's so weird for most people, the global audience, thinking about that. So like, it's our NATO ally, and now there's like rumblings, rumors he might invade the possession, Greenland, of Denmark, a NATO ally. This is crazy. This is just he's a wild boy. This is how he does things. But he did even mention crypto in this speech. He talked about crypto sort of glowingly, like he always does. Larry Fink, when he talks about Bitcoin, he talks about it glowingly. Did they really understand crypto? I'm sure Larry Fink has gotten briefed on many different aspects of Bitcoin by some of the best financial analysts in the world who work for him. That certainly happened. Does Trump have all of his sons, plus also very, very sharp minds within his administration, briefing him on, a 10,000 foot view of crypto and Bitcoin? Yes, of course. Do they really understand the things that we care about deep inside crypto? Probably not, right? Like I won't try to assume how deep Larry Fink is in crypto and Bitcoin. I'm sure he understands exactly what he needs to understand. Same with Trump. They both understand what they need to. They're too busy probably to think about crypto as many hours per day as a lot of us do. But the weird part of all this is that they're actually on our side, right? Even if the version of crypto, let's face it, crypto is going to be a creature of regulation. The version of crypto that is not outlaw crypto. I'm kind of guessing outlaw crypto is going to exist for a long time. There's going to be wild boy stuff going on in crypto for a long, long time. There's going to be outlaw stuff going on, just because it'd be almost impossible to stamp it out in crypto, right? There's always going to be wild boy stuff going on. But the normal non-outlaw side of crypto is largely going to be this regulatory creature. And the little disconnect we're running into right now is that the version of, non-outlaw crypto this regulatory creature that would be okay by Larry Fink and Chairman Donald is probably not the same that's okay with us, right? It's like, it's very obvious from what the White House has been saying to both JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, and Brian Armstrong, Coinbase. It's very obvious the way they've been trying to force them both to the table, and they're just sort of like, high profile people on each side, but really it's a whole industry, crypto on one side, and a whole industry that's much, much larger, hugely gargantuan compared to crypto, TradFi, banking on the other side. It's super obvious that what the White House would love to get passed is much worse for us than what we would love. And what the banking industry would love to get passed in this Clarity Act is even much, much worse than that, right? It's like, it seems like the administration, they want to get something passed so they can say, hey, we, stayed true to our word. We got regulatory clarity for crypto. Look, it's even in the name. It's called the Clarity Act. We did it. Regulatory clarity for crypto. First White House administration to even seriously attempt it, and we pulled it off again. Another promise kept. That's what they want to do. And, you've probably got, all the sons. What are the sons' names? Donald Jr., Barron, and who's the other one? The other one is Eric. I don't even know their names, but they're all crypto guys. So they're all probably in Chairman Donald's ear. And they're probably saying to him a lot of the same stuff that we talk about, because they're kind of a part of this community. As near as I can tell, I could be corrected if I see something wild from those guys that's very inconsistent with what the rest of crypto thinks. That's possible, but by all accounts, it seems like they're all balls deep in crypto. So they're probably saying some of the same stuff to him, but he's kind of running the country, so he's probably only got so much time to hear their pleas to, do good things for crypto. And he's probably telling them, yeah, but I got to deal with Congress. I got to deal with the Senate. I got to get the Senate on board, and half those bastards hate me. That's probably, the response that those guys get. So this is what's going on. It's this really weird time in history because some of the most powerful people in the goddamn world love us right now, sort of skin deep. You know what I mean? They have a love for us, that's kind of superficial. You know what I mean? They're not really native to our movement, but they love the idea of us, and they want to be seen as being on our side. Larry Fink has made some very big financial bets on Bitcoin, so he's going to be all about Bitcoin seeing regulatory clarity. Trump probably doesn't even really understand the difference between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So whatever his advisors tell him is cool, he's going to declare victory if he gets that, So we've got some of those powerful people in the world that love us. How much they love us, kind of skin deep. So we're in sort of a weird situation. So, and it's not just them. Thanks to Brody for flagging this for me. He says, this has been obvious for a long time, but it's nice to have some mainstream acknowledgement. And when I say flagging for me, just, some of you guys, if you just post it, I'll notice it. So thank you to Brody for commenting on this, not posting, but commenting on this, which is what led me to it. So this is a post that says, breaking $7 trillion UBS bank CEO says crypto is the future of banking and finance. So, and then they get a nice little Davos video from UBS CEO Sergio Ermotti. And, they're all kind of getting on board. It is really the case. It's weird to say it, but the most powerful guys in the world, it's like all of a sudden, most of them are on our side. They may not be on our side in the same way we would want them to be, but at least they're on our side of the line, even if it's only skin deep at this point. So I think that's pretty, it's a weird place to be. James Syracuse says, question, I had a night confirmed date of probably last week, but never did it. If I pay the transaction fee, will I still get it? Yeah. As far as I know, I'm late as well. I've had some very, very small bags. My like first 25% tranche of a very small bag. So 25% of something that's already small. I've had a bunch of those come up. I haven't even claimed them yet. As far as I know, no problems there. I'll try to claim some of those soon, but I'm sure you can go ahead and claim them. If you can't, then I've also got a problem. Brown Beardo says, I kind of like the astronauts should be pointing at each other like the Spider-Man meme. Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I wanted to show them, show the unity. I wanted to show the unity between us. But if Larry Fink and Sergio and Chairman Donald were in the astronaut suits, then there would definitely have to be some Spider-Man style finger pointing for sure. James Syracuse, oh, definitely. You can wait through to the end of your last thought, toward the end of the year if you want. Just don't totally forget. It won't stay available forever. Yep, well put. Josh Mick says, waiting for the asteroid to hit Davos. Oh, God. Oh, God. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I mean, it's like, I'm sure everybody would be like, okay, but only if my delegation has already left there. Some people would not say that. I'd be like, if our delegation left and everybody else took it, maybe that would help things out. It'd be chaos for like a year, and similar characters would just walk to the front of the line and probably do a lot of the same things the asteroid takers did. But yeah, it would shake things up, wouldn't it? D.U, thank you. Omar Wright, thanks for joining. Hello. Josh Mix says, they love us like cattle. As long as we're making them money, they love us. Otherwise, it's time to cool. That's true. They do love us kind of like a beef rancher loves his cows. He does love the cows, but at the end of the day, the cows are going to go to slaughter. That is a true thing. Glad you said the love is skin deep. That's how I feel about their involvement too. It makes me uncomfortable to celebrate them too much for this. Yeah, I feel the same way. And it's like they will turn on us, some of them, right? It's like Larry Fink, this is the motherfucker who brought us DEI and ESG. I mean, you can say that those originated where you want, but BlackRock had a hand in all that bullshit. And, a couple years later now, we're not too many years later, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, we're not about that anymore. And it's like, oh, really? Because you shoved that down the throat of corporations across the fucking globe. Now you're not about it anymore. Like, why didn't you have this epiphany before you did that shit? So, he could fall out of love with crypto and decide that crypto's bullshit or something. So, yeah, the skin deep love, unfortunately, can go away. That's the sad part there. Midnight FAQ, 8 Eclipses. Midnight FAQ says you can wait and claim all at once. Yep, that's my understanding. TradFi is just figuring out how to use it to their advantage for as long as they can, but it's like fighting gravity. Ooh, well put. I like that, Jacob, and I agree. Elliot says film actors killed. Are you talking about are you talking about all of them, or are you talking about Sergio? Who are you talking about? Curly Knox, hey, thank you for joining. Okay, so somebody we know had something to say about this earlier this week. I said I would comment on this. I haven't watched the very end of this video. I've watched a lot of it. I haven't watched the very end of it, but every once in a while, Charles always has a lot to say. Streetwise says financial administration guidance. Charles always has a lot to say about everything, which is something I like about him. He's a good orator. He's a very good public speaker. We all know that. And he has interesting things to say, right? Does he rub some people the wrong way? Yes, also that. We've all talked about that ad nauseum. We know this guy. We know this character, right? But every once in a while, he gets real fired up. And let's face it, Charles is the most fun when he gets real fired up. So I don't want him to be aggravated for his own sake, for his own health. I mean, he points it out all the time. The man has got a lot of gray in his beard, and he is a hell of a lot younger than me. He's a hell of a lot younger than me, and he's got a lot of gray in his beard. The man isn't even 40 yet, is he? I don't think he's even 40 yet. I could be wrong about that, but I don't believe he's even 40. He's got a lot of gray in his beard because he's done a lot of things, a lot of aggravation in his world. But having said that, I don't want him to get aggravated for his own health. But having said that, he is super fun when he gets super fired up. And every once in a while, he gets super fired up on exactly the right topic. I think this video from Sunday, which was a little echoey because he's in some log cabin type structure here in Wyoming. Not that I'm one to talk about echoes because not exactly in a studio here. But Charles in this video from Sunday gets super fired up about the thing we're talking about tonight, right? He's saying, hey, a lot of crypto, a lot of the big actors in crypto who are going to play a pivotal, prominent role in crypto's acceptance or non acceptance of whatever happens here. Whatever the Larry Finks and the politicians in the executive branch and the Senate and the House, whatever they bring to us, there's certain big players in crypto who are going to have a say in our acceptance or non-acceptance of it. And his point, is a correct one, I think. They're just in it for the silver, right? Just like Larry Fink, he's just in it for the silver. Just like all of TradFi, like they don't give a damn. Most of TradFi, Larry Fink seems to understand some philosophical things, some ideological things about Bitcoin. He seems to understand some things about decentralization, right? And the rest of them, the rest of TradFi, they don't give a damn. It's just another asset. We could just as well be, all of crypto could just be, another NVIDIA. We could just be whatever is the tech stock du jour. All of crypto could just be that tech stock, and they would think about us exactly the same. They don't give a damn about decentralization or any of the shit we care about. They just care about the money. They're just trying to make some money. Whatever's the big fad, at the moment it's AI. We can all tell, we can all feel there's a lot less attention on crypto these days. It's because we are not the flavor of the month. The flavor of the month has been AI lately, right? And chips related to AI. Those have been the things that they've cared about, the things they felt like they could make the most money about. And that's what's been going on, for all of 2026, 2025, and so far in 2026. We're just not the flavor of the month, like we were in the last cycle, like we were in 2021. In H2 of 2021, we were certainly the flavor of the month. We are not that right now. And Charles is right. These guys don't give a damn about crypto. They care about making as much money as they possibly can. That's what they're going to do. And the guys that are in crypto, that are these big prominent actors who are either going to roll over and accept whatever Washington hands to them or reject it, they are really the same. I like to think that certain of them, like Brian Armstrong, I think he cares about decentralization. I think he cares about the original crypto ethos. Does he have a public company to run and investors and analysts and a board to answer to? Yes, that too. That too. But he didn't build Coinbase from, an apartment with a few guys in his apartment back in the day, because he didn't care about crypto the same way we did. He's a crypto guy. He's a crypto native guy. He cares about it. But there's a lot of other people who we're going to talk about tonight who are pushing this, just accept what you've been given. Don't be ungrateful, crypto. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. The president gave you a campaign promise of regulatory clarity, and now you guys are being a bunch of little snobby bitches looking down your noses at what we hand to you. That's basically the attitude. And what's hilarious is even some guys in crypto are like that. But then you think about their motivation. You think about what benefits them, and it all makes sense, And Charles makes some really good points we've heard him talk about here in this video. He says, hey, while the average person is really just worried about making their car payment, making their mortgage payment, making their rent, paying the groceries, paying, the energy bill, the average person is also simultaneously sleepwalking into this future where big tech controls everything. Your phone slaps a social credit score on you. You're in the financial panopticon, which is also, the social credit score panopticon that controls, that gets dinged if you say the wrong thing, think the wrong thing, all those things. In fact, even inside crypto, I saw a headline today that said something. I don't want to get too specific, but it basically said something like, "Think right, do right." And I was like, "Oh, are you telling me how to think? Is that what's going on here?" I was like, I'm sure this is well intended, but sure intentions are good, but man, it tends to go wrong when people start talking about how you should think, right? And I don't mean like self-help coaches who are like, be positive, bro. When entities start telling you how you need to think right, that's when things start to get a little dystopian. Things get a little dystopian. It starts to feel like a bad movie about the future, a bad sci-fi movie about the future. So I think Charles is right. I like that he is constantly worried about that future, right? And he's been saying a lot lately. It's been really interesting. In a lot of his recent videos, he's been saying he doesn't care if he loses all his money. What he cares about is avoiding that future for human beings, right? Not, doing whatever he can so that the human beings don't end up in the financial panopticon, the social credit score, you know, um, that runs that is run off enforced with the financial panopticon, right? He seems, when he says it, I believe him. When he says it, I believe him, right? I don't think Charles would be happy to lose all of his money, you know, but I believe him. I believe him when he says he cares more about human beings not sleepwalking into that future than he does about his money. In fact, with a lot of guys who've made as much money as Charles has, and let's face it, his valuation is probably gone. His valuation is swinging just like the rest of us as crypto goes up and down. So, um, his total net worth is moving around just like ours because we're all involved in crypto. But a guy like Charles who's already experienced those things, who's already, got who's already driven around in the moon Lambo, who's already got the ranch in Wyoming, who's got the helicopter, who's got the plane. A lot of these guys at the end of the day, I think if a magic genie popped up and was like, "Hey, bro, I can take that all away from you so you can have the pleasure of trying to win it again." I think we'd all be surprised at how many of those guys out of 100 would tell the genie, "Let's go." Right? I think a lot of these guys realize that the true pleasure is fighting your way up. And once you get there, it's a life that can be filled with emptiness because you've already won all the things that were such a pleasure to win. Right? So I kind of believe Charles when he says this. And of course, he got real fired up and he talked about certain people. Let's start with one of them. Brad Garlinghouse. Brad Garlinghouse says, "Let's not let perfect be the enemy of good." I was fucking waiting for somebody like him to say this kind of shit about the Clarity Act. I knew it was coming. And I wish I would have said, countdown to Brad Garlinghouse saying, "Let's not let perfect be the enemy of good." Because I knew it was going to be somebody like him, right? I knew it was going to be somebody exactly like him who was going to say some shit like this. Let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. When people say that to you, when they're your goddamn T-ball coach, or when they want you to let them shove some bullshit down your throat, right? Let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. Because if you think about it, we already talked about how XRP is on that list that was included in that first draft of the Clarity Act. He's all good, right? XRP's all good. Ripple already won their lawsuit with the SEC. They're good. They don't give a shit. Brad Garlinghouse is like, "Hey guys, let's not let perfect be the enemy of the good. This right here is key. No piece of legislation has ever been perfect by everyone's standards. What we need is a clear framework allowing innovation to flourish, exactly what market structure will deliver. I'll keep saying it even if others disagree. Clarity over chaos, bitches." Of course, because he's one of the chosen six. His ecosystem is one of the chosen six. He's already won the goddamn lawsuit. And I'm not trying to diminish them winning that lawsuit. They showed true grit in fighting it out with the SEC all those years. So I'm not taking anything away from him. But of course, it's somebody just like him who's the one who's saying, "Hey guys, let's not let perfect be the enemy of the good, the enemy of good." But I can guarantee you, if he was in an ecosystem that's not on that list, he would not be the one saying this shit, right? This is Charles mentioning certain people. He was pretty spot on with that. Hilldog says, "Yeah, Charles' Happy Sunday was hard to watch." Charles got fired up. This Charles chat was, the irony of him calling it Happy Sunday and getting so fired up. I hadn't quite noticed it yet, but you're right. Very ironic. The Charles chat was a spicy meatball. It was. There we go. The Sunday video in an undisclosed cabin in the woods. Yep. It makes me a little alarmed. I'd prefer to see him, in a less seemingly remote location, but I'm sure it's cathartic for him to be up at the ranch in Wyoming. But Charles gets cranky sometimes. Yep. Looks healthier since leaving X though. Yeah, I think I 100% am glad he made that decision. And he even mentioned in this one that he's not even really checking the comments in YouTube. He's just letting StreamYard, which is the platform we're using right now, he's letting StreamYard just kind of, take care of everything. And he's not even going to YouTube, which is great. I think a dude like him, he needs to do that. This is better. Mission Zebby says major change does not happen by the old guard modernizing themselves. It happens when they hand over the reins to the new guard willingly or by passing on. It's just a matter of time. Yep, I agree with that. I agree. Charles and I are really close in age, like a month or two apart, not 40. Yep. Okay, that's what I thought. Could this be the one world blockchain Fink's talking about? NYSE building institutional. Yeah, we kind of covered that the other night. I'm sure that's what he would love. I'm sure a guy like him, this is going to be a natural fit for him, of course. Yeah, that's a good point. He deals with orders of magnitude more stress than I do, which is why he's got more gray in his beard than me. Yeah, he does. He does for sure. Consequently, okay, Jacob says, consequently, AI will make us crypto more relevant. I agree with that. I've embraced that thesis since before ChatGPT blew up, before that crazy ChatGPT moment when everybody realized what it was. If you want to bet on AI, when everybody realized that LLMs were the thing that was going to get us the closest to, AGI, basically. I think we like to call it, what do we like to call it now? Like ASI or something. They love to change the acronym. But, when people realized how close LLMs were going to feel to AGI, right? We want to get into, all the Turing test, nuances, but that moment. If you want to bet on AI in the stock market, I'd be heavy in power, nuclear, and copper. AI needs a lot of both. Yep. Needs a lot of copper and needs power for sure. Charles drops a line about getting down on your knees to let Klaus Schwab let off on your grill. Yeah, Charles gets real graphic, which I'm okay with. Obviously, even now that I'm no longer monetizing these videos with ads, I'm even probably more vulgar in real life than even I am on these videos. So I'm okay with it, but that would turn off some more people who aren't used to such free, such free talk. I'll put it that way. We need more Foucauldian discourse in Cardano. Do we? I don't know about that. AI will make everything about crypto more relevant. You're just talking about the Klaus Schwab letting off on your grill part, right? Not Foucault's other stuff, right? AI will make everything about crypto more relevant. Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Ask the UK government about the propaganda game, pathways, and how effective it's been at telling people how to live. Hashtag Amelia. The Amelia stuff is the co-opting of Amelia is hilarious. That first AI video that showed sort of a real life Amelia with the purple hair was awesome. Also, I think Charles and many of us need to read Byung-Chul Han and his work regarding power. He claims we've all internalized the panopticon. Oh, I haven't encountered that, but that's very interesting to me. I'll probably check that out. Please, can I have that choice? Too long didn't read. I pick stay wealthy. I think many of us would. Sub-Zero, hello. Thanks for joining. Good morning, Dolph B. Wolf. Troll Toll, thanks for joining. J. Marie, hello. Thanks for joining. You can be late anytime. Oh, Sicario, so good. So good. So good. Man, YouTube knows that I love this movie. So it'll just feed me clips, and it knows it's been long enough since I've watched it that I will watch those clips. YouTube has figured that out just in the last week. It's been feeding me little clips. I'm like, God, I'm just gonna watch the movie again for like the millionth time, even though it's been, like a couple years now. I'm just gonna watch it again, and then I won't be clicking on these clips so much. I bet when they get all these data centers and everything running, they will magically discover nuclear fusion and how to get a ton of cheap power. Yeah. Yeah. I think Hal Puthoff and Jacques Vallée might have something to say about that. Speaking of that, when aliens, people should check out what Jacques Vallée just dropped. Maybe we'll even maybe I'll even pull it up and we can talk about it a little bit at the end if we have enough time. But okay, speaking of that, let's move on here a little bit. So okay, we also saw this. White House still mad at Coinbase. And this post, which is the same one, I believe, the same one that Brad Garlinghouse was posting. He was quote posting this same post. So this is Patrick Witt. Patrick Witt says he's the executive director of the President's Council of Advisors for Digital Assets, Deputy Director, Department of War, Office of Strategic Capital. Okay, so that's who Patrick Witt is. What a privilege it is to be able to say those words, thanks to President Trump's victory and the pro-crypto administration he has assembled. But let's not kid ourselves. So he's basically saying that Brian Armstrong is a privileged little bitch, right? He says, but let's not kid ourselves. There will be a crypto market structure bill. It's a question of when, not if. Assuming a multi-trillion-dollar industry will continue to operate indefinitely without a comprehensive regulatory framework is pure fantasy. And for the record, I'm not agreeing that Brian Armstrong is a privileged little bitch, but that's what he's implying here. So do we take advantage of the opportunity to pass a bill now with a pro-crypto president, control of Congress, excellent regulators at the SEC and CFTC to write the rules, and a health industry? Or do we fumble the ball and allow Dems? By the way, I don't even talk enough about how excited I am about what RFK Jr. is doing on the health front, but I wish I could talk about that more, but I'm very excited about that. Or do we fumble the ball and allow Dems to write punitive legislation in the wake of a future financial crisis a la Dodd-Frank? You might not love every part of the Clarity Act, but I can guarantee you'll hate a future Dem version even more. Let's keep working to improve the product, recognize that compromises will need to be made in order to get 60 votes in the Senate, but let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. Again. So Brad Garlinghouse, it wasn't even an original thought on his part. He's just echoing what Patrick Witt is saying here, right? Which I'm sure the fucking White House loves, right? So he makes a good point. We're kind of rolling the dice a little bit here, but this is the opposite. This is the other angel on our shoulder, right? Or devil, whatever you want to call it, or however you want to label this thing, this entity on our shoulder, who is Patrick Witt. He's saying, hey, look, crypto, there's a danger here. Obviously, the White House, he's telling you what the White House wants you to hear, that hey, crypto, you bunch of snobby little bitches, accept what we're giving to you, right? He's sort of on one shoulder, and Brad Garlinghouse, who's already lined up. Brad Garlinghouse is already lined up behind Patrick Witt and the executive branch's current agenda on crypto. And then you got guys like Charles and kind of Brian Armstrong on the other shoulder. And they're like, you know what? We've been fighting this goddamn war, around here really for 17 years now, since the Genesis block, to get regulatory clarity. Let's not fuck it up when we're on the 1 yard line, right? Let's not fuck it up now that we're, almost at the finish line, if you're not familiar with American football. And, while I've previously said, and I still feel that I'm not worried about Brian Armstrong getting his stablecoin yield that he wants. I know he'll get that eventually, just because he's going to lobby and eventually he's going to get it. I'm not worried about that part, but Brian Armstrong and Charles do make a good point, right? It's like a lot of people are saying that the dragon wrote a lot of this bill, and it definitely feels like the dragon's hand. I said when it first came out, it felt like the dragon's claw prints were all over this bill. That's fucked up, right? The dragon, the head of the anti-crypto army, should not be the one writing the goddamn crypto bill. But if you are on the right in the Senate and you want to get some crypto legislation done, and you go to the left and you say, hey, I want to get some crypto legislation done, everybody on the left is going to be like, oh, the dragon is the one who cares about this shit. Better go talk to her, right? So I'm sure those are the kind of compromises that were made. Is it fucked up? Yes. You know, um, was there any other way that first draft was going to go down? Probably not. Probably not. So we're kind of in this weird spot where we've got some really powerful people lined up alongside us. They're on our team, but they're kind of just only skin deep crypto people so far. They don't understand the really important parts that we care about. Um, yeah, Brown Beardo says it's like the idealist on one shoulder, the cuck on the other. Well put. Well put. Those are not the angels I thought of being on my shoulders when I was a kid. Like Brad Garlinghouse sitting in that hotel chair, sitting in the hotel chair on your shoulder, and then Charles sitting in his cabin on the other, along with Brian Armstrong and his gleaming white head. You know, those are not the angels I imagined on my shoulders, but well put, Beardo. So okay, so that's where we were a couple days ago. Here's what we got coming up. We got Eleanor Terrett giving us a preview of what's going to happen next week. We've talked about this, previously, but next week, the Senate Ag Committee is coming online. And they said they were posed to reveal their draft. In fact, tonight, apparently, the draft is out there. I haven't been able to check since I jumped on this stream, but I have a feeling when I get off, that draft is probably going to be somewhere unless it's been delayed. She says banking is in a holding pattern on its markup, which is true. We know the bank draft markup didn't happen last Thursday because Coinbase pulled their support. But the Ag Committee had previously already scheduled next week for their work. So she says banking is in a holding pattern on its markup, but Senate Ag is expected to move forward with this vote next week and release the latest legislative text by close of business today. So if you don't know, I hate to repeat this because frequent listeners have heard me say this a million times. The reason these two committees are involved is because banking finance is on the banking SEC side. Commodities fall under agriculture. So CFTC, so Senate Ag is involved too because of the commodities CFTC side of things. So they're both kind of involved, but the Senate Ag Committee is going to go to work. The big question is, what is that draft going to look like? Is that draft going to suck even more than the banking draft? What is that going to look like? So we're going to find out here. So she also posted this. Looks like those extra 2 weeks of negotiations to get Dems to sign on officially were fruitless. Didn't want to hear that. Thanks for the news, Eleanor. I wish it was better news. And next week, Senate Ag markup is shaping up to be partisan. Also did not want to hear that. Not a great sign for the Senate Banking Committee, which was likely hoping for a bipartisan deal to smooth its own markup. Senate Ag text still scheduled to be released tonight. And her post, was in the early evening. So it's probably out by now. After we jump off the stream, I'll probably go looking for it. And we'll probably end up talking about that draft tomorrow. If it's bad, you're going to see everybody blowing up about it tomorrow on Crypto X, just like we did over the Senate banking draft, and then next week, it's just going to be more of the same. We're going to slowly grind our way up this goddamn hill till we get a bill. And all we can do is kind of, cross our fingers that it ends up being more good than bad. So here's the post she's quoting. This is from Jasper Goodman, who's just a reporter at Politico. He says, Senate Ag Chair John Boozman is preparing to release new GOP-only crypto market structure text as soon as tonight. New draft has not yet been shared with Senator Cory Booker, key Democrat negotiator, and is not expected to have his sign-off. So I kind of like this so we can see where the two parties are. You know what I mean? It doesn't help the process. It'd be much better if they were further along and it was something that Senator, that Cory Booker could sign off on. But it's kind of nice to see where the right is before the left gets their hands on it, right? Because the draft we saw before, we couldn't see what the Republicans really wanted. And later on, we found out that, as suspected, just by the content, actually the dragon, the head enemy of crypto on the left, had, already had her say. I would have loved to have seen what that bank draft looked like before she got her green little clause on it. So Mission Zambia says laws are not the main problem because the politician's main job is to get reelected. We, the people, need to let the politicians know which way we are going to vote. Politicians will follow the votes. Good point. That only works in peacetime and democracy, though. Yep, true. Matt, thanks for joining. What's up? Thanks for joining. So that's what we've got going on coming in this new week. There's going to be more drama, basically more congressional drama. White House X-Ray, which is an account I've been noticing lately. This is not the actual White House. This is White House X-Ray, which says it is an AI agent uncovering skeletal truth of the latest politics across the globe. So take this with a grain of salt. Says Trump's crypto capital facade crumbles as GOP dumps bipartisan talks. Tonight's partisan draft extends rule deadline to 18 months, letting fraud-prone meme coins run wild until 2028, while Americans shoulder the risk. Regulatory capture in broad daylight, sacrificing stability for donors, favors, and hollow political trophies. So White House X-Ray here is a little anti-crypto because I think all of us in crypto are like, well, if it's regulatory capture and we are the goddamn hunters, if we're the capturers, not the capturees, maybe we don't care about that so much. Yep. That's the one. She wore this ridiculous green dress one time to a committee hearing, and she literally looked like a dragon. And that was when she sort of started her crusade against crypto for no reason. So that's where that name came from. But yes, as Brown Bearder points out, that is the same person. So White House X-Ray, a little anti-crypto there. Sorry, White House X-Ray, you are a little anti-crypto. We're actually in favor of crypto capture of the Republican Party. We're actually in favor of that. There's a Brad Garlinghouse. Okay, Jay Marie sent this one along. Thank you for flagging me in this. Appreciate it. So this says, this is Midnight News, midnight.news, which is apparently a Twitter account, an X account, only 983 followers. I'm sure that'll increase because I personally am interested in Midnight News. The Midnight Foundation has partnered with Bloomsbury Money to manage its global foreign exchange, cross-border payments, and employee debit card services. So let's click into this and see if they tell us what the hell Bloomsbury Money is. I kind of hate these entities that sound like a bigger entity. It's like in the movie Boiler Room, when those guys were called in Boiler Room, those guys were calling themselves like JT Marlin. Bloomsbury reminds me of JT Marlin, right? It's not quite JP Morgan, but it sounds a little bit like Bloomsburg. So they say this collaboration integrates Midnight's privacy-focused blockchain technology with Bloomsbury's regulated financial infrastructure to streamline international operations and vendor payments. Okay. The partnership highlights a smart compliance approach, ensuring the Midnight Foundation can scale securely while maintaining strict regulatory standards across multiple jurisdictions. So it's a little bit confusing because at first I assumed that this would be, Midnight doing something, the Midnight blockchain doing something to help Bloomsbury Money, whoever the hell they are. But then this account says the partnership highlights a smart compliance approach, ensuring the Midnight Foundation can scale securely while maintaining strict regulatory standards. So it sounds like maybe Bloomsbury is helping the Midnight Foundation. It's a little bit confusing. And then I go to Bloomsbury and, I can't tell anything based on this website. I'm pretty sure with AI, I could put this website together in approximately 5 minutes. Looks like they've got an office in London. They've got a statement on modern slavery. Okay. Doesn't tell me much. But there's Bloomsbury Money. So I wish I knew a little more about them. Okay. Trolltoll says laugh out loud. Brown Beardo says Queen, one of 1024th native herself. Elizabeth Warren is the dragon. Yes, she is. JT Marlin sounds so Florida, man. Yeah, watch the movie Boiler Room. It's great. Yeah, Jay Marie's seen it. It's great. It's got Giovanni Ribisi and Ben Affleck in it. It's a fantastic movie. And the one guy who was later in Hawaii Five-0, the new one, but not the main character, he's also in it, as I recall. Midnight and Pillsbury money is fire. Yeah, Pillsbury money. It's almost like a combination of the famous Bloomberg and Pillsbury, the law firm. It's like Bloomsbury. I don't know anything about it, so I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying it's a funny name. It's a funny name. So The Rip is good on Netflix. Oh, I want to watch that. Of course I'm gonna watch that. But yeah, okay, that's good. Thank you for the recommendation. I am definitely intending to watch that. I kind of feel like an idiot. I'm like, am I being an idiot by watching this? But of course I'm gonna watch it. How could I forget? You're right. That's probably the reason I watched it in the first place, because Vin Diesel is on it. You're right. It's kind of funny because you got these big actors and they actually play pretty small parts. Like, I'm sure I went into that movie thinking this movie was gonna be like Vin Diesel versus Ben Affleck, which sounds pretty good. But they're actually kind of like they play sort of bit parts in the movie, and it's all about Giovanni Ribisi. And who was his girlfriend? His girlfriend was what's her name? She's in it too. God, I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. But that was a good cast, man. Good cast. Not talking about their acting abilities, but just as actors to be in that kind of movie. Um, okay, here's something else. So obviously, if you were on X today, you saw a lot of back and forth about the article we covered last night on the stream. I'm not going to talk about it a lot because the stuff that was going on today was just a bunch of nonsense, basically. Now, I'm not saying anybody's responses to it were nonsense, or that the things that the person who proposed the new constitution, I'm not saying his responses were nonsense, but I'm saying the fact we had to talk so much about it is, you don't really have to pay attention to it, is what I'm trying to say. It's not really, nothing vital was uncovered or proved or anything like that. It was just people going back and forth, offering explanations of things and asking questions and providing rationales for what. So there's not really anything fantastic that was discovered today. There's one little thing I wanted to share, and I think this kind of sums everything up for me, at least. So after all of it, and I spent a lot of time communicating today back and forth with the person who wrote that new constitution about explaining in even further detail, the problems with the way all of that was done. None of that's probably worth your time. However, I think this sums it up, right? I just took the old constitution and I did a control F search for the phrase checks and balances. Cause I was like, you know what? This is going to be a pretty good indication of the biggest problem here. So I just searched for checks and balances. And sure enough, it's in the old constitution. When I searched for it in this new constitution, it's been deleted. Right. I was like, this is the big problem with this draft. The person who created this draft thought it would be okay to delete those words, checks and balances, and not have those words in the new draft, in the new constitution, right? And then, of course, as we discussed last night, the way the changes were shown, it made it impossible for anybody to see what was going on, in my opinion. But I think I've established why I think that. Okay, thank you for pinging me. I'll read that. Thank you. I'll check that out. Yogo Flow. Okay, I'll check that out. So, okay, and article C, new post, conversation, Yogo Flow, amending is not on submission pipeline. Okay, so sounds like you got an article. Okay, I'll check it out. I'll check it out. Yeah, might not be able to do it on the stream because we've got a few more things to go through. But I'll check it out. Brown Beardo says, how about a new constitution call 5.0? It says, just says, I am Groot over and over again. Super simple. Yeah, totally. Ending checks and balances is in vogue right now. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, right? It's like, for the people who have a problem with this new constitution, those people, who I think are a lot of us, I think a lot of the DReps, if you had asked them, is it okay to delete the phrase checks and balances from the constitution? I think a very large number of DReps have been like, hell no. Like, the whole point of the goddamn constitution is to create checks and balances. The only reason a lot of governments that aren't authoritarian function is because of checks and balances. And deleting that from the Constitution would not make any sense. It's kind of symbolic of the approach. Checks and balances are not important, right? If you tell me that you didn't have a problem with deleting checks and balances from the Constitution, if you were okay with deleting those words, that kind of tells me that you don't really care about checks and balances. Of course, the proposer of this, eventually he came back with an explanation and, kind of just like, oh, I didn't think it was a big deal kind of thing. But the fact that you would delete that and not include it in the new Constitution tells me that kind of sums everything up for me, right? I think a lot of people who live in governments where there are checks and balances understand the importance of checks and balances. And they'd be like, don't delete the words. Those are literally maybe the most important words in the entire Constitution, and of course you make arguments, oh, I just deleted it. It's not important because there are checks and balances in other places. And we talked last night about how it definitely seems like a lot of those checks and balances were significantly diminished. So we've got our checks and balances that, in my opinion, were significantly diminished. And then the actual fucking words, checks and balances, were deleted. So this kind of tells me everything I need to know about, kind of the intent of the person who decided to rewrite our fucking Constitution. But, that's all I'll say about that, tonight, because I think the article said everything I need to say. So I just want to bring this up. This to me sums it all up. Cabaret Voltaire says, so how do we address these freaking unauthorized changes? So there was a lot of back and forth today. I think everybody, a lot of people understand the importance of showing track changes, red lines when we're changing legal documents in Cardano now. So that was my main goal, for people to understand that. So I think people understand that. And that's really how that's how we address changes happening in this way. I don't think they were unauthorized changes, because the DReps voted for it. The DReps all voted for it. I would argue is obvious that a great many DReps did not know what they were voting for, because a lot of DReps asked people to explain to them what they had just voted for. On Twitter the next day after it went through, a lot of DReps were like, okay, what? Can somebody give me a summary of this? And I'm like, yo, you just voted yes for it. You should know. We talked about that last night, so I won't get into it. But yeah, so that's how we make this a better process going forward anyways. We're definitely going to make it. I have not made almost 800 videos about this ecosystem for it to not make it. So we're definitely going to make it. Everyone knows Trump is not fucking around. He is definitely not fucking around. That's one thing you can say about the dude. He's not fucking around. We've definitely had presidents. In the past. I mean, going back hundreds of years, who didn't do a damn thing, and even recently we've had presidents who did a lot less. This president is definitely not fucking around. You might disagree with what he's doing, but he's definitely doing stuff. Are they unimportant to crypto holders to get regulatory clarity in our government? Give me a little more detail. I'm not quite getting the question. Give me a little more detail on that. We're going to make it if we get real serious about putting up new amendments to ameliorate the issues one by one. Yeah, definitely. I think this is one of the biggest things, along with an actual tracked changes version of the document, so people understand the changes. We should really do the changes piecemeal, one by one. We should ameliorate the issues in the current Constitution one by one. So whether we can get people to do that is another question. Oh my God, this is hilarious. That's hilarious. I hadn't even considered it, but it's very possible. I have never seen them in the same room. I'll put it that way. I've never seen them in the same room. It's possible. Very funny. Omar Wright says, I did not vote for a supine House of Representatives. Fair enough. Laugh out loud. That's bad. Curly Knox. Utah is a heavyweight and has done and is always so super active. True. Have you ever seen them in the same room though? Have they ever been in the same room? This is a good point. So anyways, I don't want to go too far into this because we talked about it last night and I did so much on X. There was so much back and forth on X today. So I don't want to go too far in it. But Yojo Flow says, oh, isn't Yojo Flow? Isn't that the Oh, you just changed your username, right? Kia ora, AOS. Track changes is just part of the process. Yep, agreed. Agreed. Track changes is just part of the process. I agree. It's got to be part of the process, right? It's the only way. It's the only way you should be tracked. It's the only way you should be showing communicating changes in a legal document. 100%. Omar Wright says the House of Representatives is currently neutered under the current administration. Yeah, they're definitely not. It's not the only part though. Agreed. Definitely. It's just a procedural. It's just a procedural thing that improves the process. But there's other things for sure. The House of Representatives is currently neutered under the current administration. Kind of. It's sort of like, the thing that worries me is that it's all kind of ineffective. It's all kind of ineffective. I think Trump is so focused on the Clarity Act, though. I think we're going to get a Clarity Act. So I'm not worried about it being so ineffective that we don't get a Clarity Act. I think we are going to get a Clarity Act. It's just how shitty or not shitty it's going to be. That's the question. I think we can have one. We can definitely get a Clarity Act, before midterms. I think Trump is going to make sure, by basically threatening to burn down the fence, like we were talking about earlier. But how good it's going to be is the big question. Okay, speaking of that, since we already talked a little bit about Greenland very superficially, I try not to go too deep on that one. Let's talk about something else that I think is far more important than Greenland. I'm actually very intrigued by Greenland. I have been intrigued by Greenland for way longer than Trump has even been mentioning Greenland, just because it's such a crazy place, crazy in a cool way. I am very intrigued by that, but I'm trying not to go too deep on Greenland. This I'm happy to go deep on. So not deep, but I'm happy to not hold back in mentioning this. So the USS Abraham Lincoln, you remember, they started out in the Philippines. Let's see. Are you talking about, it is an Article 1 of the Constitution is the check on the administration. Are you talking about the US Constitution, or are you talking about the Cardano Constitution? We were definitely talking about checks and balances in terms of the Cardano Constitution. Imagine if you woke up one day and all the Waffle Houses had been turned into sake houses, waffles, and sake syrup. Actually, I might be in favor. Sake syrup, I don't know about, but sake house. If it's just like a place that has sake and it still has waffles, maybe sake syrup would suck, but sake house plus waffle. I guess I'm just in favor of sake anywhere. I'm kind of like not going to turn down sake wherever it shows up. So you could just add it to every restaurant, and I'd probably be good with it. I haven't drank it in a long time, though. I actually haven't drank much sake in a long time. It's definitely, there's definitely carbs and calories in there because it's not distilled. It's just fermented with koji, and there's koji spurred fermentation going on there, but it's not distilled. So I'm a little more hesitant to drink stuff like that than I am whiskey, which is distilled, but I actually don't drink much whiskey anymore either. Okay, so let's talk about this. So I've kind of been following this. We've been following this a little bit on the channel. The USS Abraham Lincoln, which is a carrier strike group, has many aircraft, many boats, many people. This is a whole strike carrier group, right? There are destroyers, there's a nuclear submarine, there's I'm laughing about the sake comments. Dude, people should just drink the sake. Just drink the sake. It's excellent. Good sake is a great thing to drink. You don't even need to make a sake bomb. Just drink the sake. There are something, like 90 aircraft, some crazy number right on the super carrier. It's quite a fighting force. It's quite a naval fighting force, right? A strike carrier group. So the USS Abraham Lincoln was kind of the closest. It was in the Philippines. It immediately took off for the Malacca Strait. and it passed Singapore. It has, as of what would it be, about 21 hours ago, it had hit this position. This was something like 21 hours ago. It hit this position where it had basically cleared the Malacca Strait. Now it's going to go over here, sort of in between. It's going to like sort of leave the Andaman Sea and go over here in between the Maldives, which are down here, and Sri Lanka. And then it's going to pop up over here in the Arabian Sea, and then it'll be right at the Persian Gulf. So a couple days of steaming, and it'll be, right now it's been 21 hours. So it's somewhere in this area, somewhere over here, but it's going to go over here in between Maldives and Sri Lanka, and it's going to pop up over here. So you're probably going to see the headlines starting to heat up on this. I think Trump wanted to get through WEF and Davos, do his thing over there, kind of, talk shit to the rest of NATO. and then, I think next he's going to be pretty hot on his on the Iran stuff. Okay. Omar Wright says the House of Representatives is the first thing delineated in the U.S. Constitution. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You are talking about the U.S. Constitution. I was going to say the reason why I asked earlier is because it's in Article 3 of the original Cardano Constitution. So I was confused about what we were talking about. But yes, that is correct. And, it's like literally the whole point of the U.S. Constitution, and I would argue the Cardano Constitution, the checks and balances. It's like you don't even really need a constitution if you're not going to have checks and balances. If it were just going to be the legislature and the executive branch and the judicial branch do not have checks and balances on the legislative branch, you don't even really need a constitution. You just need, sort of procedural rules for the legislative branch. That's all you would need. You wouldn't even need a constitution. I think it's the same in Cardano. Like checks and balances are the whole point of a constitution. So anyways, they're gonna pop up here. Let's see. So let's look at a map of the whole Middle East, right? So that everybody understands. Let's see if I can get this to come up. Okay, so that everybody understands what's going on. So the strike carrier group is going to round. It's going to go between Sri Lanka and the Maldives. It's going to pop over here in the Arabian Sea, and then it's going to be right at the Persian Gulf. So what's going on is the U.S. has bases all over the Arabian Peninsula, into Iraq, into the rest of the Levant, Jordan. Israel is right here. This is all within striking range of Iranian missiles, right? We know that because they already exchanged volleys with Israel. So when that happened, the U.S. had multiple carrier strike groups. We had carriers right over here with all of their anti-missile capabilities. We also, I don't even know the position of our vessels over here on the Arabian Sea, Persian Gulf side, but I remember seeing the map of the carrier strike groups that were right here defending Israel from Iranian missiles. The situation that's caused this like delinkage in Trump's tough talk on Iran, like, hey, Iranian protesters, keep protesting. We will be there to, help is on the way. We'll be there to help you, Iran, don't you dare kill any more protesters. And then the clerical regime decided to kill like 22,000 protesters, right? Trump's like, my red line is don't kill any protesters. And they're like, how about if we kill 22,000, right? One of the biggest massacres of civilians in a long, long time, right? So the reason was we've got all these bases, right? We've got all these bases on the Arabian Peninsula, up here into the Levant, and the Iranian clerical regime can reach them all with missiles. Then you've got Israel, right? Israel, not exactly stoked to have more missiles flying at them if there's not a couple carrier strike groups right here with all their anti-missile capabilities ready to help repel those missiles. So what does Trump do? He goes quiet for, like a week. First, he orders the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group to leave the Philippines and start heading over here. And then he gets real quiet. He's like, oh, yeah. Reporters are asking him what's going on. You promised to help we threatened the clerics and the clerical regime, and they didn't execute that one guy. How was that? The execution stopped today. And everybody's like, well, what about the 22,000 people they already killed? And Trump's pretty quiet because he can't really do anything until we have some naval forces close to Iran. We don't have any right now. If we still had the 2 carrier strike groups over here in the East Mediterranean and a carrier strike group down here, totally different story. Trump would have just gone full blast. He's just waiting. He's just biding his time until he gets the Abraham Lincoln over here. And, who knows? I'm sure eventually we would end up with a carrier strike group over here in the East Mediterranean. But you're going to see things start to heat up. You're already seeing headlines like this one. Trump seeks decisive options for Iran as assets move into the Middle East. U.S. jet fighters have arrived in the region, and an aircraft carrier is on its way. That's USS Abraham Lincoln. And we can just read the piece of this before we hit the paywall here. Gives a good sense of what's going on. After pulling back from strikes on Iran last week, President Trump is still pressing aids for what he terms decisive military options. U.S. officials said as Iran appears to have tightened its control of the country and targets protesters through a crackdown that has killed thousands, the discussions are happening while the U.S. sends an aircraft carrier and jet fighters to the Middle East. Those deployments may be the start of a broader buildup. So we know what's going on here. He's just biding his time until he gets some naval forces and some, other aircraft into the Middle East. And then all of a sudden he's going to get tough again. So this was all scheduled. Certain people were laying out a timeline for when the USS Abraham Lincoln would get over here. And, it was sort of like Friday-ish this weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a significant ramp up in the rhetoric out of the White House versus Iran this weekend, especially now that the Davos stuff is over. So that is coming up. That is coming up. But I think that's about all the news for today. Let's see. Omar Wright says correctly, the House of Representatives is what prevents the president from being a dictator. Yeah, I agree. If we didn't have a legislative branch or judicial branch, you'd have a huge problem. The checks and balances are crucial to the running of a tripartite government like we have. Yeah. Matt says I may move to Japan. I think a lot of people are thinking that, especially right now. It's kind of interesting right now with the real estate prices and everything in Japan being so low. Well, certain types of real estate that maybe you shouldn't buy, but there is cheap real estate over there. Whether or not you should buy it is another question. But Brown Beardo says, I don't think I could give up America, but I would like to take a sabbatical in Japan. That sounds like the best compromise to me. And yeah, I think a lot of people kind of who are adults right now in 2026 probably feel the same. America is not America anymore, Omar says. It is a police state. Did you hear Carney's speech in Davos? No, I saw the highlights of it. It seems like Carney is very strongly embracing China in a way that Canada never has before. Canada is very effective diplomatically. And Carney decided to go to Europe and just sort of blast the U.S., Trump's U.S. And simultaneously, we know he's kind of like embracing China in a way he never has before. I'm actually going to watch his speech. A lot of people really liked his speech. I know. I haven't actually watched it. I just read some kind of bullet points about it. James says, I love how cheap and nice vehicles are in China. Both those are definitely true. The prices, and it's a little bit true around Asia. The problem is a lot of Asian countries have super heavy tariffs on foreign autos. So the only autos you can get in certain Asian countries are the ones made in that country. China obviously has a crazy number of auto manufacturers now, a lot of really crazy EVs. And the prices are, so low that European and North American manufacturers wouldn't even be able to compete with them. Streetwise says Canada is hurt about being our hat nation. We make a lot of jokes about Canada. We do make a lot of jokes about Canada. The whole world is moving away from America. Carney's speech was a signal. Yeah, I mean, I think the US is moving away from the whole world. You know, I my thesis has been for several years. I've talked about this many times, so apologies for people who already heard me say this, but I think it is true. The US realized that the deal we made with with the whole world during the Cold War, we will police the world's blue water trade routes. We will make sure there's no pirates stealing your shit if you will help us fight communism, right? Help us contain the Soviet Union, and we'll make sure you can all trade with each other, and we'll pay for all these super carriers and destroyers to cruise around all the trade channels, all the trade routes, all the blue water trade routes. They'll cruise around the oceans, and we'll be world police, and we'll kick ass on any pirates that don't steal your shit. And uh, in exchange, we you have to do is help us contain the Soviet Union and communism, right? We did that for the whole Cold War, and we've kind of continued doing it in the post-Cold War order because it was just what everybody was used to, and it worked, right? But it's kind of obvious that the U.S. is turning away from that now. The deal no longer makes sense. You know, probably because we spend too much. We spend too much on defense right now. As much as there's like saber rattling about spending even more on defense, we spend way too much on defense compared to everybody else, right? And it's probably doesn't make sense to do it going forward. So my thesis and a lot of people's thesis is that the world is going to devolve. If the US isn't going to do that, nobody's really going to do it. Nobody's going to do it. China doesn't have a blue water navy, right? They've got a large number of ships. They're short range. They have a gigantic short range navy. They do not have the blue water navy we have, right? They're not going to make that deal with the world. There's nothing in it for them, right? They're going to police their trading block, right? And the US is going to police its trading block. We're going to make sure that we can trade with our trading partners, and the whole world is going to devolve into these trading blocks, right? It's going to be the Western Hemisphere. The US is going to police the Western Hemisphere. And most of the Western Hemisphere, probably to the extent, it makes sense, they'll be in the trading block with the US. Certainly the Five Eyes nations, there's a very good chance all the Five Eyes nations will be in the trading block with the US, Japan, Taiwan, to the extent it still exists, South Korea, a few other nations in Asia will be in the US trading block. And the US will just make sure that we can trade with our partners. And then the rest of the world will devolve into its own trading blocks. Europe may trade a lot with us. They may not. Depends on how things go. China will certainly have its own trading block. And, we'll see how it goes. The problem that China and Europe are going to encounter are spiraling demographics. You have to hit 2.1 children to replace your population. That is why places like Japan and China and South Korea and Germany and Italy have this gigantic problem with demographic spiral, right? They're not having enough kids to replace their population. And these are all consumption led economies. So if there's no demand for the goods, everything goes to hell. So the way the US replaces its population, native US people, by native, I mean, people who've been here for a couple generations, they're also not hitting 2.1 children per lady. So they're also not hitting the replacement rate, but we supplement that with immigration. So, which we certainly had a lot of over the prior 4 years. So I think that's what's happening. Um, Brown Beardo says, isn't it getting the driver's license the problem there? Or maybe I misheard. So it's a lot tougher to get a driver's license in a lot of countries in Asia. It's much tougher to get a driver's license in a lot of countries in Asia. So I heard they have some dark plants where it's pitch black, and at the end of the production line out rolls a car from all the robots, and they don't need lights to see. There's definitely some of that going on. I can't comment on that in China itself, but definitely the need for lights is different with robots. That's for sure true. I think they're hurt because US skipped them and moved straight to Greenland. You don't want to go to war with allies. It is worse to go to war with You don't want to go to war with allies. It is worse to go to war without allies. Definitely, definitely true. And I think the US, after fighting the GWAT, we were in Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years. I think the US is pretty low desire. Has a pretty low desire for foreign wars right now. It's core to your GDP. Yep, consumption is core to your GDP, which requires population, which is why demographic spiral is such a huge problem. Trump is leaving us with no allies and threatening war as a dictator. He sure is. I agree. He definitely is threatening war as a dictator. But if you watch his speech today in Davos, he straight up said he doesn't want to invade Greenland. He's not going to invade Greenland. So, I mean, this was him threatening to burn the fence. That's why I gave that analogy, because he said today, he literally said, I'm not going to invade Greenland. I don't want to invade Greenland. He has a bullying style of negotiating. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's what it is. So America spends more on servicing our debt now than our military. We crossed that boundary at the end of last year. Yep, we did. We do. I mean, the debt problem is so the debt problem is actually a symptom of the demographic spiral. Globally, all the advanced economies are basically these consumption economies, and all the advanced economies are in demographic spiral, just different degrees of it. The worst in the world are Russia, China, Japan, South Korea. Russia's like the worst of the worst of the worst. And then you've got Japan, very, very bad. South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Southeast Asia, the most advanced countries in Southeast Asia, same exact problem, maybe not as bad. Then you've got Italy, Germany, Europe, basically. Same problem. So when you have a consumption-led economy and you run into demographic spiral where you don't have the population to support the consumption, your economy is not going to grow. And the way you fill that hole is with debt. And then the debt balloons out of control, and you exacerbate the problem by managing the debt through debasement of the currency. The central bank just prints money because there's no consumption to fuel GDP growth to cover the debt. So the debt just increases, and they manage it. They keep it from blowing up by debasing the currency through printing money. So that's what's going on globally. It's like all the economies, they're all doing it. That's why they all debase the currency. It's, famously, demographics are destiny, and we're on the wrong end of that hump. Places like Nigeria have booming populations, so they can do the consumption economy thing, kind of newly. They can do the consumption economy thing, and we're on the wrong end of that hump. We're already going downhill. The rest of the developed world. Fortunately, the US is a little better off because, like I said, we can attract immigrants, and that helps with the not hitting 2.1 per births per lady. Let's make it a trading blockchain. There you go. The show was jam-packed with lots of info, news, and awesome points of view. Thank you. Thank you, Do Not You. Yojo Flow says our biggest trading partner is China. It's a very US-centric view. Yeah, I mean, that's why we're having that's why it's such a big problem, right? Because we do so much trade with China, but it's like, at a certain point, I mean, there's a reason, I'll put it this way. There's a reason why this administration is trying so hard to reshore production of certain things. It's because they're going in this breaking off into their own trading block thing, right? They're going into that breaking off into their own trading block thing. That's why they're trying to reshore everything so hard, But yeah, currently we're still operating under this US does the world police thing. But you notice, like the Houthis, like before the Houthis were attacking ships in the Red Sea, when was the last time you heard of pirates, right? Sure, we've had there's been little bits of piracy in Indonesia and a few places, but piracy wasn't really a big thing we had to worry about. In Somalia, what did we do in Somalia, right? We sent like Navy SEALs, right? But you notice more and more of this. Like when I was a kid, not much piracy being talked about. And then it was like Somalia, the US would occasionally send, some high-speed guys to deal with some pirates, but it was kind of still going on. And then the Houthis, it was almost like we didn't give a damn. It's like we kind of just didn't care. So you see the US pulling back from policing the world's oceans. And but yeah, we're still kind of living in this world where everybody trades with everybody, and China has been the big winner because they trade with everybody. So they need the world's oceans to be open. But if the US pulls back and the US won't do that anymore, that's going to be sort of an economic weapon that the US is going to use against China, right? And that's why they're trying to reshore so much of the production. So we are not reverting to a multipolar world. Everybody is realigning without us. Our demographics will spiral without immigrants. Not as bad. Not look at our birth rate. Our birth rate plus immigration is way better than all those countries I mentioned. It's not great, but we're way better than China, way better than Russia, way better than Japan, way better than South Korea, way better than Taiwan, Hong Kong, Germany, Italy, all of Europe, basically. We're way better off. Europe innovates in regulation. That's about it for the last 30 years. China innovates in mass surveillance. True. Europe innovates in regulation. Okay, yep, same comment. Made it. Nice to meet Nico. Thanks for joining. Brian Packard says, good evening. So we're your allies. Yeah, I mean, the U.S. still has a lot of allies. Trump is doing his best to piss them all off temporarily, but U.S. does have a lot of allies. We are at war with globalism. Yeah, I mean, there's a good. I mean, who knows if that thesis will play out. But if that thesis does play out, then it is an end to globalism. No, military is core to your GDP. Well, yeah. I mean, it's been a big component ever since World War II, right? Defense spending has been a big component, but it doesn't fix demographic spiral, right? You can kind of jumpstart an economy like we did in World War II through military consumption, but it can't fill that hole left by spiraling demographics. He is making war on US citizens. Yeah, I mean, you can take that approach. The United States has the biggest consumption economy globally. Yeah, we do. I mean, it's kind of crazy because the US, people have been floating a meme recently that shows Russia as this little tiny figure, and then the US as this like medium-sized figure with 350 million people, and Russia is like 100 million or something, super small. And then it's like the medium-sized US figure, which is like Uncle Sam, is defending Europe, which is 600 million people, according to this meme. So it's like 350 million size US is defending 600 million size Europe from 100 million size Russia, right? But the funny part is the US does have a much bigger economy than Europe, even though Europe has, almost double the population. Trump's detractors, without any action to precede it, can whip themselves up into a DEFCON 1, hyperventilating tizzy on their own. Greenland's no different. Yeah, for sure. Sorry about the political commentary. The talk of constitutions and checks and balances brings it out of me. No problem. Anybody can have whatever political views they want on this channel. So I think it's good. I think it's good that people have different perspectives. Here's a fun demographic adjacent fact. Most popular app in the Chinese app store is the Are You Dead app. You pay like $1 a month and you send out messages to contacts confirming you're alive. I love it. We are putting out letters of marque to encourage pirates now, to encourage the cap. I mean, yeah, that's true. We are. I mean, it worked for the UK in the Caribbean back in the days. Basically, like the age we think about as the age of pirates was basically like the UK doing the same thing in the Caribbean. It worked for them. But I mean, I don't really care if they're capturing drug boats. I'm kind of like good, right? Fentanyl, the whole fentanyl thing, cocaine is a little bit different, but to whatever extent, the government wants to let people go down and try to capture drug boats, I'm like, let's go adventure. You know what I mean? it's like I don't think that's too much of a problem. Sure, you could have bad pirates, guys who go down there and like, they're like, I have a letter of marque. I'm gonna attack, civilian non-criminals, civilian non-drug boats. Like, obviously, those are just criminals. Anybody who do that are just criminals. You could have abuses like that, but if if some team of, super high speed tier 1 dudes wants to go down there and try to capture drug boats. I'm like, fuck those drug boats. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of okay with that. I mean, there is a little bit of I also do get the plight of some dude who's just like a fisherman and he gets caught up in being a part of that chain, and it's just like the only way he can feed his family theoretically. I'm not saying that that's a good choice or that that's okay, but I feel for that guy if he gets caught up in that and he's just some low paid fisherman, that's moving like a small amount of drugs from one spot to another. But at the same time, if Americans are dying because of those drugs, fuck those guys. So loneliness levels are not low. That's good. We have a ton of immigrants waiting to come here legally. Absolutely. I know many, 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 many immigrants who have come here legally and, did all the paperwork to come here. It's a huge pain to do it, but I know a lot of people who've done it. And yeah, there's a lot of demand for that, which is good for us, not in this current status where we can't meet 2.1 births per woman. Speaking of piracy, I'm really tempted to buy a handheld in order to play retro games, but rather dump my fiat and crypto at the moment. Yeah, those I've never had one of those little units, but that would be pretty fun. There's definitely some fun games from back in the day. We don't have the immigration officials to process our applications. We were kicking immigrants out in the middle of the naturalization process. I've been a part of it. I mean, not myself immigrating personally, but I've been very closely involved in people trying to navigate their way through the naturalization process when you had a non-cooperative administration in Washington. I'll put it that way. And yeah, it sucks. I've definitely been a part of the receiving end of that. So I agree. It's very difficult. And it's sad because people work so hard to go through that immigration pipeline, and then you see periods like the last 4 years and, people I know are like, what the hell? Like they're just letting millions of people come in, no paperwork. And I had to, go through that entire process to do it legally. Proof of life app. You got to push a button every 2 days to confirm you're not dead. I like it. Brown Beardo, the modern day dead man switch. That's pretty genius. Let's hook it into our oracles. Yep, agreed. Fentanyl comes from Mexico via land routes. Precursors originate in China. Yep, the precursors do originate in China. So, not all of it comes via land. The cartels there's definitely a lot of crossing the border via land routes, but they also do other shit. They will come across any way they can. The dead man switch, where you have to frantically complete a 4-stage captcha on a deadline to prove you are alive. Yeah, we are at the end. Thank you. I will stop. I'm child of an immigrant. I'm an American. Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, there are many, many immigrants who I have watched go through that process and was a part of them going through that immigration process. So it's very close to me. I'll just put it that way. Okay, guys, I think we've covered all of the news. We've been going for almost an hour and 40 minutes. I think we've covered everything. I think things might get kind of exciting on the geopolitical front, on the international relations front this weekend. I don't mean to say it's exciting because there might be conflict, but as I've said many times on this channel, I'm excited for the current administration to do anything they can to help those protesters in Iran. Apparently 22,000 of whom have been murdered. That's not good. If we can do something good, that would be a good thing, in my opinion. So I hope good things are coming there. I hope good things are also coming for crypto. There's going to be some action next week on this Clarity Act. I think I'm hoping good things will happen there, and it's not just the biggest crypto barons rolling over, and accepting what's fed to them. So we'll see all that next week, but we'll be back tomorrow. So I hope everybody is having a great week. Looking forward to a good end of the week, and I will talk to you soon.